Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says, "Hey dude, you too must be from Marin." Marin County's A-OK, from Tam to Stinson all the way to MA. Fresh organic veggies in the market every day. The Dennis, Dylan, and NWA.
Welcome to the Run TMC podcast. That is the Run the Marin County podcast, a podcast about basketball in Marin County. I'm Duffy Ballard, and with me is my friend Dave Levine. And this is the section in the podcast where we go into some dauntless banter. We're going to banter with...
It's not going to be torpid. Not torpid, correct?
That's right. There might be alacrity, but there's not going to be torpidity. All right, how are you?
I'm great. Great.
Yeah, great. So happy to hear that. We're not going to talk about NCS playoffs. We're going to come back to that, but hopefully the listeners have been enjoying those very specific updates. We do want to make mention, however, correspondent Chase Hatch, who went off script a little bit in our last episode and gave us his take on the NBA All-Star Game. And Dave, I think it's fair to say that you and I agree that it was pretty much unwatchable.
So I turned it on for, I think, 135 seconds.
How many
I saw
you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I saw 5 threes. I saw no defensive stances, and I turned it off and went back to the never-ending procession of Office episodes that my kids watch. So, yeah, it was sad. And I remember, Duff, you remember Hoop Dreams? Remember that movie? Great movie.
Yeah, very good movie. Yeah.
And in the beginning of Hoop Dreams, they're watching, they're in the projects in Chicago, and they're all huddled around the TV, and they're watching the All-Star Game, right? And they're watching MJ. And like the All-Star Game was a real event when we were kids. And the NBA players in the game took it seriously, and it was a chance for them to really compete against the best. And now it's just this, there's no effort, there's no fundamentals, there's no basketball being played. And it's a bummer. Chase said it well, I thought.
He did. I have to admit, I did not watch a single second of it, Dave, but I did look at the box score afterwards. And it looked to me like it was a battle between Karl Anthony Towns trying to score as many uncontested 2-pointers as he could versus the entire East team shooting warm-up 3-pointers.
Yeah, so I will say, and I know, Duff, we're gonna do a quick interlude here into our NBA predictions that you so boldly made a couple months ago. One positive aspect of the weekend, the All-Star weekend, was the Steph Sabrina Ionescu shooting competition, which was awesome because Sabrina, the lone representative for the WNBA, had tons of pressure on her, and she stepped up and did a great job, hit a bunch of shots. And then Steph, being Steph, just classy and a great ambassador of the game, beat her, but in a like, I think it was 29-26 or something, but it was great energy. And I think going forward, if the NBA is smart, they will incorporate WNBA players into All-Star Weekend. They should. The WNBA is a great product right now and getting better and better as the college game has a bunch of really good stars who are going to be coming into the league. So I think the NBA needs to do something. And I think bringing in WNBA players in All-Star Weekend would be a good move.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think, it was a battle of the sexes, and Steph was not afraid to lose, and he very well could have lost that shootout. And so that was a very somewhat risky thing to do for Steph and for both of them, honestly. And they both came out of it looking great. So
they both had a lot to lose. So if she shows up and she goes 2 for 20, oh well, the WNBA is not that good, right? Like she's representing an entire league, an entire sex, basically, everything on her shoulders. And then Steph, you're absolutely right. Like if Steph loses, he wouldn't hear the end of it, right? So I thought they both were very courageous to take on this challenge, and they both stepped up and delivered like they always do because they're both just studs. So I thought it was super cool.
Maybe next year they do it. They switch the size of the ball. So Sabrina shoots with the men's ball and Steph shoots with the women's ball.
That would be a nice little change up. You should be in marketing, Duff.
All right, let's get into, Dave. Let's review our very bold predictions from one of our very early episodes. I think it might have been episode 4, maybe it was episode 3. I know KK called me out afterwards because, Dave, I had a couple predictions, as did you. One of them was that Wemby would not win Rookie of the Year. So I just looked right now. He is still one of the top 2. However, if you follow, what is this here? Where are we? Okay, we are on FanDuel. No. Dave, I am on sportsbettingdime.com, not a sponsor. But if you look at this, the current favorite is Chet Holmgren. And he and Victor Wembanyama have been essentially at the same odds for quite a long time here during the season, with Brandon Miller, Scott Henderson,
Scoot
Jr., Scoot. Yeah, so pretty far behind. So anyway, we'll see.
So I think, well, Holmgren's had a great year, and he and Wemby are similar kind of players, right? Just the modern, these 7-footers who can handle and shoot threes and shoot step backs. But one angle there is Oklahoma City is I think they're the 2 seed in the West. They're really good. They're 37-17, and the Spurs are way at the bottom. The Spurs are 11-44. So I know Rookie of the Year is more a purely personal award, but I think the team's performance probably informs some of the perspective on that, right?
Yeah. Although, Dave, I will say now going to FanDuel, Wemby is the favorite slightly over Holmgren. So I guess, I guess it depends where you want to bet. And we're not condoning and we're not taking any wagers.
Right.
So, all right. And then MVP. Dave, I don't know if you weighed in on this early in the season.
No, I
said
didn't.
Jokic, but Porzingis right behind him. So Jokic looking good with the Embiid injury. Jokic appears to be the favorite. Porzingis has had a good year for the top team in basketball, but he doesn't appear to be present. And honestly, Dave, I was kind of joking around a little bit with that one.
You also claimed that PJ Tucker would play an entire season without scoring a basket, right?
I did. And yeah, he was off to a good start. I think he played 26 minutes and didn't score in his first game. He has ended up playing, Dave, 3 games so far this year and scored 6 points.
Wow, you were pretty close.
We'll see.
Well, except for the games played part. Your other prediction, Duff, was Chris Paul related?
Yes. Prediction was that he would not end the season with the Warriors either because of injury or trade. And we'll see. Yeah, it looks like he's coming back, though. And he has been very good when he's been on the floor for the Warriors. And actually, their defensive rating has been excellent with him on the floor. And that beginning of the year, that second unit just looked great. So I do look forward, if he comes back in and the second unit has him and Klay Thompson and Saric, that could be fun to watch. They could get back into a situation, and Looney on the second unit as well.
Warriors are a strange team this year. A lot of ups and downs. They look great for a couple weeks, then they look terrible, and then they come back and look great again. It'll be interesting to see how they ended up. Right now, they're barely in the playoffs as of today. I think they're the 10 seed in the West with about 30 games left. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd say for a team with a bunch of champions on it, they're awfully good at giving away games at the very end.
Yeah, they've lost a bunch of really tough, close games. You're right. You would expect them to win those games.
Right. Or not actively lose them. I mean, they have actively lost some of those games, not been beaten. So I am going to predict that the Warriors do make the playoffs. And Dave, I think this is not going to be a huge surprise prediction. I think it's going to be Celtics and Denver in the finals. I am pretty sure that Philadelphia and Milwaukee will not be in the finals, but I wouldn't rule out Miami making a run. Never know with them.
Okay, last prediction, and then we'll move on from the NBA. As of today, the Detroit Pistons are 8-46.
Mm-hmm.
Your Washington Wizards, with your friend Jordan Poole,
yeah,
9-45. Duffy, at the end of the year, which team will have more wins?
Pool party, Dave. I think I'm going to bet on Jordan Poole throwing himself a pool party and getting as many shots up as he possibly can. So that is going to be just enough to have the Detroit Pistons grab a couple more wins and edge the Wizard.
Okay, you heard it here first. We'll check back in June or May, whenever the NBA season ends. The NBA season is a baton death march. It's the longest thing ever.
You're not going to get a prediction there, Dave?
Oh, I am with you. I think the Pistons are going to eclipse the Wizards and not be the least winning team in the league.
Yeah. But the Spurs could surprise us as well.
Yeah, the Spurs have 11 wins, and then we have Charlotte has 13 wins, 13-41. And the poor old Portland Trailblazers. I guess the Damian Lillard trade not working out so well for our friends in the Rose City.
Not in the short term.
Or Rip City, as they call it. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. You might know that, but
Rip City. Rest in peace for.
I don't think so. Maybe. All right, let's move on, Duff. Are we going to do glossary?
Yeah, I think you've got one. Funny, Dave, I was out for a very slow jog right before recording, and I was thinking to myself, time to bring back the glossary. And I was like, oh, I've got a good one. And then I come back and I look on our shared document here that you've been working on dutifully, like you always do. I appreciate that. And what do I see? I see the exact entry that I was going to go with. So we have one entry from the two of us, but you're going to explain it.
Great minds, Duff. The term today is a hammer screen. It is funny that you had the same idea. So a hammer screen is a weak side flare screen for a shooter, typically in the corner for a three. And it also involves a penetrator driving on the strong side under the kind of to the basket and then going along the baseline and making a cross-court pass along the baseline to that shooter who received a flare screen. So if you think of the Warriors, as we all know the Warriors, let's picture Draymond getting the ball at the elbow on the right side. Draymond drives towards the basket. He ends up going under the basket and then kicking out a pass to the left corner to a wide open Steph Curry who received a flare screen from Looney for a three. That's a hammer screen. Now, Duffy, why do they call it a hammer screen?
What time is it, Dave?
It's
hammer time.
Hammer screen.
Stop.
It's hammer time. I never know. Is it sponsor time? Is it?
I don't know, and I'm about to learn why they call it a hammer screen.
So I was perplexed by this. Like, is it the shape of a hammer? No, I couldn't figure it out. Did a little Googling, Duff, and I love this. It is named after Darvin Ham.
Oh.
Current Lakers coach, longtime NBA journeyman. Now, if you think, those of you, I know we have a lot of basketball people listening to this. Darvin Ham, not a great three-point shooter when he played.
He's setting the screen. He's setting the screen, isn't he?
Actually, Duff, he's the guy who would penetrate and kick it to Ray Allen, Michael Redd, Glenn Robinson. So it was according to Darvin Ham, this play was developed by George Karl in a timeout when he was playing for the Bucks. And he had an idea of have Ham, who was, physical, big guy, but he also a good decision maker, have him penetrate and then set a flare for Ray in the corner. And they just started to call it hammer action. So it became known as a hammer screen. So named after Darvin Ham. You're welcome.
Beautiful. So yeah, Dave, we ran this in our second NCS game at a critical point in the game. I think we were up maybe one, just a couple, and we had the ball on a slob sideline out of bounds. And so the way we ran it was to get the ball into the hands of our left-handed guard, Grady Stewart, and set a ball screen for him on the strong side, and then have him go to his left to the baseline. And meanwhile, on the weak side, we're setting that hammer screen for Owen Bugas And so
Yep.
now Grady's on the baseline with his left hand and the screen's happening. And that was
Perfect.
the most open Owen was the entire game. And he drained that shot. So yeah, good action. I think you can run it again against the zone too, especially a 3-2 zone, because if you're able to isolate, say for example, that the bottom guy,
Just one guy to screen.
yeah, yeah, and then so same action can
Yep.
work not quite as well against a 2-3, but definitely against a 3-2.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
hammer screen, good stuff.
All right, Duffy, what time is it?
Synergy time. We were so totally synergistic on that hammer screen. But synergy time over, and now it's sponsor time. Take us away, Dave.
All right. We want to thank our sponsors, Karen Horstmeyer Real Estate. Love Karen. She just texted me the other day congratulating me on our San Domenico win. Love you, Karen, and support Karen Horstmeyer if you're buying or selling a home.
Yes, please do. And we want to thank Jeff Skaggs and the San Domenico summer camps. If you're looking to send your kid to summer camp in a beautiful part of the world in very sunny Sleepy Hollow with some great coaching staff and just so much expertise at that camp, Dave. So take a look at San Domenico Nike summer camps.
And then Medium, go to medium.com and you //discount, and the code is all caps, no spaces, Run TMC. You get 25% off your first year. Thank you, Medium.
Thank you. Very cool online publishing platform. Really easy to use. Very nice graphics. Nice interface. Nice, I think they call it UI, user interface.
User interface, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You have the hub, Duff.
I have the hub. All right. Yeah. So meal of the day from the hub. This one I get fairly often. I'd say it's my third or fourth go-to. And it is the steak dip. And Dave, you can get the steak dip, or you can get the steak dip Philly style. So the steak dip is thinly sliced sirloin steak on a ciabatta roll with melted Gruyere cheese, caramelized onions, horseradish sauce, and au jus, the juice. I usually do not get the onions on this, although I do like caramelized onions in some circumstances, but not with a steak dip. And then Philly style is that you get all of that, and then you get some sauteed red peppers and mushrooms. Very good. And I sometimes will go with a side of mac and cheese. Yesterday, before our game, we had a little pregame meal the coaches did at the hub, and I didn't want to eat a whole lot, so I just got a side of mac and cheese. And, just standard mac and cheese, but it was perfect. So
love the hub.
All right, Dave, let's get on to our intro to the intro, to our interview, which was awesome. I think we both feel very fortunate that we got to speak with these two gentlemen, one of whom is about to start, or probably has started, spring training with the Texas Rangers. So take us away, Dave.
Yeah, we're honored to have had the chance to talk to our friends Will Venable and Jett Russell. Both are proud San Rafael High grads from the late 90s, early 2000s. And this was a really fun conversation. Duff and I sat down with these guys via the web on Super Bowl Sunday, bright and early in the morning. Will is an extremely busy guy. If you don't know, we talk about his background, but just real quick, he was a Major League Baseball player for almost 10 years. And the last couple of years has been a coach in Major League Baseball and is now the number 2 guy, sits alongside Bruce Bochy for the Texas Rangers, who won the World Series last year. So Will's getting himself a World Series ring. But he was days away from leaving for spring training to get back in the swing with baseball. So we had a really fun discussion with these guys. We talked a lot of San Rafael High history, talked about playing for Bret Tovani. Jett is himself a really good baseball player, played in college at a small school in Iowa after playing at college in Marin. Both are really good basketball players. So we talked about being multi-sport athletes. And Jett is currently the athletic director at Archie Williams. So he works with Duffy and is just a great guy, really thoughtful. This was a really fun conversation that, as always, was too short, in my opinion.
Yeah, Jett, really high energy guy, just is great with the kids, gets our games set up, home games, everything goes really smoothly. It's been great getting to know him on campus. And yeah, Will, very gracious in Smart guy. We definitely could have talked to these guys a lot longer. Will had a tight schedule, but we really appreciated him making the time that he did. And we talked a little bit about Will's dad in the interview, but just to mention Max Venable, who I've never met, but I have this association and fondness for him because the San Francisco Giants of the 1980s, early 80s era were the team I started to root for when I first became interested in baseball. That's how old I am, Dave. But Max Venable was an outfielder on that team. A very average team, but they had a lot of character. They had Vida Blue, lefty. They had the Count, John Montefusco.
Yes.
Johnny LeMaster, the glove. You couldn't hit a lick, but man, that guy could field. Anyway, fun team to watch, and cool that there's still that local flavor with the Venable family. And anyway.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, we talk about this a lot in the interview, but Will played basketball at Princeton, which is incredibly impressive. Not only that he has a Princeton degree, and that's one of the great institutions in the world, but Princeton basketball, for those of you who know, is just an iconic program and always competitive, always beating much bigger, more athletic schools just because their system is so refined and disciplined. And so the fact that he played really high level Division I basketball at a place like Princeton, and then also went on to play Major League Baseball, is a testament to not only his athletic ability, but his intelligence. And then, by the way, his younger brother, Winston, played football at Boise State, played in the NFL and the CFL. So very athletic family.
I'm starting to feel a little bit jealous, Dave.
A little bit.
Yeah. Green-eyed monster.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's get on to the interview. Will and Jett were great, and then we'll catch up after, Duff.
Hey, Dave, that sounds like a great plan.
All right, we are rolling. Duff and I are very honored to have two legends of San Rafael High, Jett Russell and Will Venable. Hey, guys.
Good morning. Good morning. I don't know if I go as far as legend for myself, but Will certainly ticks that box. But thank you for the honor.
Don't be humble, Jett. So, guys, I'll do your backgrounds just to give our listeners some context. I think they probably know who you guys are, and then we'll dive right in. We got lots to talk about, and Will in particular is a very busy man. And it's Super Bowl Sunday, so we all have stuff to do today. But Jett, let's start with you. So you're a San Rafael High grad, class of 2000. You and Will played hoops together for 3 varsity seasons. Will's a year younger than you are. I'm sure he reminds you of that. In 2000, Jett was an all-MCAL honorable mention in basketball and first team all-league in baseball. He then went on to college in Marin and played baseball for Steve Behringer, great guy. Also a San Rafael Bulldog, if I believe, right? Jett, wasn't Behringer Bulldog?
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jett then transferred to Mount Mercy University and NAI school in Iowa, where he played baseball. He earned all Midwest Classic Conference honors as a third baseman in 2005. And he's going to be inducted into the Novato Knicks Baseball Club Hall of Fame in April. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And he is currently the athletic director at Archie Williams. So he makes sure that, the assistant coach for the men's basketball team, Duffy Ballard, stays in line. So,
Duffy, we love Duffy. Yeah.
Thank you, Jett. Thank you for keeping me honest. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and sorry for having to ask you to do all the CPR stuff, even though you're a doctor.
More trainings, please. I would like definitely as many more trainings as we can, as we can fit under the hood.
We got them if you want them.
Sweet. All right. We also have Mr. Will Venable. Will, we've had people on this podcast say you are the greatest multi-sport athlete in Marin history. So that's wow. Relatively high praise. You're not. I don't think you can argue that. Will is the son of Major League Baseball star Max Venable, who I grew up watching for the Giants. Played for the Giants, Expos, Reds, and Angels over a 12-year career. Will graduated from SR in 2001. He was second team San Francisco Bay Area All-Metro basketball player as a sophomore and a junior. He was the MCAL MVP in basketball. Will, is that right? As a freshman, sophomore, and junior?
I don't know about my freshman. I don't think my freshman year. I really can't recall. I don't think I was my freshman year though. No.
Okay. But you were MCal MVP a couple times. I'm pretty sure.
I think my junior year, I remember for sure. Outside of that, to be honest, I don't know. Jett, do you remember by any chance?
I mean, I know my senior year, your junior year, you were player of the year. So I would assume you were again, the year after I graduated.
Yeah. Duff, I have trouble remembering all of my accolades too. Oh, wait. No, I don't. I didn't have any. Okay. Will went on to play basketball and baseball at a small school called Princeton University in New Jersey. I mean, hard to find a more iconic basketball program, and I'm sure a great baseball program as well. His Princeton Hoops teams made it to the 2004 NCAA tournament. We'll talk about that. And also the 2002 NIT. So he was recruited as a basketball player, didn't play baseball as a freshman, but then he hit the diamond as a sophomore and stuck. Graduated from Princeton in 2005, was the second athlete in Ivy League history to be first team all Ivy League in both basketball and baseball. That's a pretty cool honor. And interestingly, at least Wikipedia, Will, says the other one who did that was your Padres teammate, Chris Young.
Yeah. It was a great honor. And he's my current boss now too, which is cool. So we've come.
Okay. So say nice things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in basketball, he averaged over 10 a game from his sophomore to his senior year, played over 30 minutes a game, was just a key piece of a really good Princeton team. We're going to talk about his experience at Princeton playing for John Thompson III, great coach. In baseball, had a real breakout season his junior year. He was drafted by the Orioles, but opted to stay in school and finish out his senior year. And he was all league his senior year and was drafted by the Padres in the 7th round of the 2005 Major League Baseball draft. And then Will enjoyed a really long, fantastic career as a player, played for the Padres for 7 years. He then played for the Rangers, Phillies, and Dodgers. And since hanging him up as a player, he's been a coach. He was a special assistant to Theo Epstein for the Cubs for a year. He was a first base coach for the Cubs for a couple of years and a third base coach as well. Moved to be a bench coach for the Sox. And then 2 years ago, he was hired by the Texas Rangers to be associate manager alongside Bruce Bochy, who all of our Marin County folks know and love as the former manager of the Giants. And then a little detail, last year, Will got himself a World Series championship for the Rangers. So congrats, man.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's start with San Rafael High. There's a lot of things we could talk about with you guys, but in honor of our friend Dave Deneen, my friend Ryan Palmer, we got a bunch of Bulldogs who love listening to this. So your San Rafael teams, basketball teams, were really good. During your time together, I believe Bret Tovani said you guys won 67 games. You won the MCal and North Coast section in 1999. In 99, you guys were the 1 seed going into the NorCals, and you got upset by the 16 seed, a real heartbreaker. Jett just emailed me the IJ cover, which showed a picture of him looking very sad. That's a huge bummer. But you guys had some unbelievable teams. You took a couple trips to Canada and Australia with Tovani in the offseason and won tournaments. The assistant coaches around that time were Mike Bravelli, Steve Woodward, and Jesse Haskins, all great guys and great coaches. So let's start with talking about playing for Bret. Jett, how would you characterize Tovani's coaching style, and what did you like playing? What did you like about playing for him?
It was the 8 seed, not the 16 seed, straight from Tovani. So just wanted to make that correction.
We have our first player control foul, Duff. Okay.
Playing for Bret was great. Bret was really firm, but extremely fair, very demanding, and in the best way possible. I think, you had to give 100% with Bret, and anything less, you were going to know about it. But, he had a very pragmatic and matter-of-fact approach. You need to do this in order to execute this, in order for this to happen. And I thought he did a really good job explaining that with everything that we did and why we were doing what we did. And then, as everybody knows, just an extremely tough, defensive-minded coach. We did some good offensive stuff too, but I think our success really, the foundation of our success, the pillars of our success were created on the defensive end and defensive side of things, and that toughness that he instilled in us.
Awesome. Will, what do you got talking about Tovani?
Yeah, no, that's really well said. And I think probably, my appreciation for what Bret did and his coaching style probably grew every stop I made after Bret, and just realizing like how advanced he was in kind of his ability to create an identity for our team. I mean, Jett talked about the hard-nosed defensive stuff. I mean, that's who we were. I mean, everything between our drills and what he held us accountable to the whole, junkyard dog mentality. Like Bret was just a master at creating this identity that we all just bought into. And I mean, I can remember even some of those articles that you guys sent, just reading them and hearing quotes from myself and other people about like, we worked harder than the other team, and that's why we won. We had more heart,
Right.
that's what Bret did, is he brought that out of us and kind of helped us create that identity. And also like, I remember practices with Bret, like it was about the fundamentals, and really dialing into those fundamentals, like Jett said, primarily defensively. But, that's stuff now that, years later that I look back and, creating identity and dialing in the fundamentals, like those are the bones of any great team, and just kind of the components that any great team has. And just have a great appreciation for Bret, and kind of at that high school level, being able to show us that early on was pretty cool.
Go ahead, Duff.
Yeah, maybe first to Jett. How did Coach Tovani, how did he hold you accountable, make you play hard? Is there sort of an example? And then maybe for Will, what made you in practice such a good defensive team? Was it shell drill? What type? How did he get you so good on defense? Obviously, it's one thing to focus on it; it's another to actually instill it and have it become the essence of a team.
With Bret, you had to earn it, and you knew when you earned it from him. Bret was never like condescending or would put anyone down, but there was an energy about Bret when you knew that you're his guy. He trusted you. You knew it. And it was like, okay, that flip has been, that switch has been flipped, and he's unlocked certain characteristics and potential from you. And you're now bought in, and he's bought into you, and that relationship is formed. And, it's a great feeling to have that from Bret. Because with me, I had to really work at it. It's kind of a confused kid coming into high school, but I knew I wanted to play ball. And, getting linked up with his system and going through it, from start to finish was great. But, Bret just had a toughness about him. There's a look that kind of Bret had that he'd give you if you weren't doing what he asked or living up to his expectations in a certain drill, that, you knew it was there. There was the energy coming from like, you better move.
Yeah.
You better do this, or otherwise the whole team's going to be running or something along those lines. But he held everybody equally accountable, which is why he was such a great coach.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, I mean, I remember drills, where, I mean, and Bret was a genius in how he did it. Jett talked about accountability and expectation, just setting a really clear expectation for what these drills are supposed to be like. Having somebody like Tommy Christensen do it and say like, this is what it looks like, and anything less is going to be unacceptable. And when it does dip below that level of acceptance, like we're running. And I remember like there was once a year where he'd kick us out of practice because it wasn't quite good enough, and we all knew that it had to be better the next time. But he just never accepted less than what he had set expectations for. And I think we just all had a really clear understanding of what that was, which is not an easy thing to do, especially with high school kids. So again, just amazing what he was able to do and command from a group of young kids.
Yeah.
Hey, we had some brutal practices, like, the night after a game on a Friday night, 4 hours the next morning. And I mean, it was really tough, but, he maximized our potential by pushing us so hard, pushing us to our breaking point, 5-minute wall sits, sideline to sidelines, 9 times in 30 seconds, 17 times in a minute. I always liked doing them in gym too, because it was a smaller court.
Yeah.
Defensive slide up and down the court till it was perfect. Yeah. He had to deal with us once in a while. If we did this one drill where we slide and get up and sprint to help, we did it perfect. We only do it once, but I always thought I was doing it perfect, but then if someone else wasn't doing it, we had to do it again. It's like, come on, guys, let's go. Do we want to do this all? And we would do it for a long time sometimes. And sometimes he just wanted to test us and push us to our breaking point. And, it benefited us ultimately in the long run. So
How I was Jett, I literally was just about to ask about Tovani's practices because they're legendary for being very, very challenging. And I played for Hanek. Those practices were tough as well, both in terms of fitness, but also competition. Like Jonas was always wanting us to compete in every drill. And so I assume watching Bret patrol the sidelines, he's a competitive dude. So talk about the practices and the competition level in your practices and drills.
This one for me or for Will?
Either one.
Will, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that just to your point about the competition and the level of intensity, like you knew when you were stepping into a practice that it was business, that you were there to accomplish something. There was going to be a really high expectation. It was going to be intense. Again, having guys like Tommy Christensen kind of set the tone in that regard, and you knew that Tommy was Bret's guy in that way, and that everyone had to come up to that level. And Bret was just really good at kind of setting up little competitions. I mean, whether it was in conditioning, there was always a competitive aspect to it. Whether it was the defensive drills, whatever it might have been, it was a high level of intensity, and you were going to compete, and there was going to be other guys in the building that were going to come after you too, and you better be ready to perform that day. And you realize looking back, like our practices were tougher than the games, and that was by design. And I don't think we were ever not ready to play because of the way that we practiced.
So Jett, you had mentioned when we were going back and forth that you guys would play pickup in gym 2 and at SR, and Deneen, when we had Deneen on talking about the older, about 10 years prior to you guys, Tovani ball that he's like during breaks or after school play pickup, and Bret would even play with them back in the late 80s, early 90s. So talk about playing pickup. Did you guys play pickup, and how did that inform your team's success?
Yeah, I mean, when I think back of my playing days there, gym 2 were some of the best moments I ever had in high school. I mean, that was like my saving grace, having that opportunity after school. It was every day when basketball season wasn't happening in the fall and the spring, go till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. Just great games, great energy in the gym. There's always a lot of people there. The first game was always the varsity players that were there that weren't playing football or a fall sport, and they play against the coaches and whatever other adults would turn up. Mike Farragher would come in, Natu would come in, and these are fully grown men playing against us, and it benefited us huge. I mean, these guys show no mercy, but they played the game hard, they played the game clean, but in the right way, and we just fed off that energy. The first game was always the best players in the gym against coaches, and it was always a great battle. And as a freshman, watching that, I was like, okay, I want to get in that game. You see the varsity players with their team shoes and their team mouth guards and things like this. I'm like, okay, that's where I want to get to. And, being a gym rat, the gym rat that I was, I would sneak into that game sometimes as a freshman. And then by a sophomore year, I was in it regularly, and just great battles. Bravelli showed no mercy on us. Mike Bravelli was there too.
Yeah.
He was a killer.
Could shoot it.
A chip on his shoulder. He's playing to win every possession, every defensive sequence. And he get after it. And that really kind of set the tone as well, with us. So,
Will, were you playing pickup?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can even remember in middle school, coming by open gym and just like the prestige that San Rafael open gym had. And then finally be able to be in high school and go in there. And like Jett said, like, it wasn't like you just walk into the gym and you're playing in that first game, like you knew that was special, something that you had to work up to. And, Bret did a great job, like bringing in those guys that you're talking about, like these grown men that are out there and not taking it easy on you, especially Bravelli. Like, I know Bravelli just loved just dominating the young guys out there, but it helped everybody, and we had a lot of fun. And, I have a lot of fond memories about open gym and just how special it was. And, to the point when, it was baseball season and, time to go, work on stuff early with Pops in the cage or whatever, like I'm not making it, like I'm stopping and I'm playing open gym. I'm getting some shots up, trying to get in the game. It was just always special to be part of open gym.
So Will, you were, as we've talked about, you were a star, right? You were all league. I mean, Will, I coached at Branson for a minute with Jonas, and we played you guys, and I think it was the Drake tournament. And I remember scouting you and Dustin and Jett. I'm sure I scouted you too. I just don't remember it quite as well.
That's okay if I wasn't scouted. I'm going to take him personally. Yeah.
I don't think you were on the first page of the scouting report. By the way, neither was I when I played. But Will, I remember. So you were a star. We're like, all right, we gotta contain Venable. So how did Bret handle coaching you as a star? Was he drawing up sets for you? Got to get Will touches, or would he kind of let the game come to you? I know this was 25 years ago, but I'm just curious how he handled that.
No, I think, he was doing whatever he could to utilize the guys that we had. I'm sure that there was times where there was design plays for me, but I took pride in like just being a team guy, and I probably to a fault, like it wasn't, I didn't need to have the ball in my hands to, feel like I need to have the ball in my hands to have an impact on the game. And so I would say more often than not though, like especially my senior year, I remember like, Bret setting stuff up where it was like Dustin and I or Stevie and I like in a little 2-man game, just kind of like simple sets where we could, just play the game a little bit, but it wasn't like, isolations for me or anything like that. I mean, we very much played a team game offensively and defensively. And, I was certainly happy to be a part of that and contribute any way I could.
So I have a Dan Dibley question. The sports talk legend Dan Dibley and guest on this podcast. And his question was to you guys, how good was your San Rafael team? And I think kind of implied in that is like, should you guys be in the conversation as one of the best ever in Marin? Like we've talked about, the legendary Drake teams of the 80s. Branson had some amazing teams in the mid 2000s right after you guys that, back-to-back state titles, Oliver McNally, those teams. How good were you guys? And then why do you think not to bring up a bad memory, but why do you think you fell short in NorCal's in that year where you guys were the 1 seed?
Go ahead.
Jett, you go first.
Okay. Sorry. I think we should have gone farther without a doubt. I mean, that game was soul crushing. We had 3 guys over 6'5". We had Dustin and Will, awesome athletes, awesome scorers. Will, great around player. We had Tommy Christensen, best point guard in the league, best defensive player in the league. We had J.R. Henderson off the bench, the glove, great defensive player, great energy guy. John Enos, hell of a shooter off the bench. So, that 7-man rotation with a few other guys getting in there once in a while, but that 7-man rotation was great, I thought, and I think we really should have gone further. We just didn't bring it that last game. There's a guy on the other team that hit 93 3-pointers over the season, and
Wow.
he got us in the end. So disappointing. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be in that conversation of one of the greatest Marin teams ever because we didn't go as far as I think we should have. But I think it's worth a mention. It's in the conversation of a good team.
Yeah.
A lot, devoted guys that were brought in the Bret system, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Will, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak of how we stack up, beyond our era, but I know we were a great team. I mean, regardless of how it ended that year, like we were a team. Like I just remember we did it our way. It wasn't quite good enough to go further in that state tournament, but we had special guys, and we knew what our roles were. Everyone was pulling on the same rope, in the same direction. Like, it hard for me to say, we were one of the greatest ever or not, but I know that we were a great team and certainly felt like that when we were playing other groups. And regardless of how it ended for us, I mean, we were special, we knew who we were and we played together. Yeah. And I'll always think of those teams as just great units.
So we'll move on from SR. I could talk for hours with you guys, but I will say, so Will played at Princeton. Dustin Brown, who you guys mentioned, played at Loyola Marymount, was a D1 player, really, and then played, I think, pro ball, right?
Yep.
You mentioned Stevie. That's Stevie Johnson, right? Who's a very well known in Marin now as one of the best skills trainers, was a coach at Branson, assistant coach under Jonas for a couple of years, and then was a head coach at Branson. Fantastic guy and an amazing coach. So you guys were stacked, tons of really good players and not just talented athletes, but really good basketball players. And Will, we're going to get to this, but to play at Princeton, I mean, Princeton is the iconic, fundamental play basketball the right way. coach's dream kind of place, and you played there and you excelled there. That shows that, you learned the fundamentals, you played basketball the right way. So you guys had a great team. But I want to talk about being multi-sport athletes, because we've got two guys here who are really good at multiple sports, and we've talked a lot about this in our different episodes. For a lot of kids are listening to this, high schoolers. And back in the day, maybe there was a bias towards, focusing and specializing in one sport. You guys excelled at multiple sports. So Will, your dad's a pro baseball player. You're obviously going to be biased to play baseball. Was your dad, pushing you to play multiple sports? Like, how did you become such a good multi-sport athlete?
Yeah, probably just because my parents just supported me in whatever I wanted to do. And, my dad understood the dynamics of baseball and how challenging that can be, certainly as a young person, but then, as a professional as well. And so I never got any pressure to play baseball specifically. It was always just about, being an athlete and going out and having fun and doing what you wanted to do. So for me, that was number one for me, is just that I had parents that were, super supportive and would also, schlep me around all over town and in different seasons to go play these games and to practice. So I really lucked out in that sense. And they were, I don't think that I could have excelled in multiple sports had I not had my parents support me. But yeah, like at the same time, I did feel like I was missing out sometimes when, I needed to be at the baseball field and I wanted to be playing basketball, or vice versa. And, it is hard to be your best at a sport when you have other things, taking your energy and your concentration too. So it was a good challenge, but, it's a lot of fun. And I also think like it really served me well, my love for basketball early on and kind of not playing as much baseball, because I never got burnt out either way, which I think is a huge thing.
Do you think your basketball skills helped your baseball game, or your baseball skills help your basketball? Like, were there things that you picked up from each sport that helped you? Maybe it's mental approach, dealing with slumps, whatever it is. Like, was there some synergy there?
Yeah, I would say just on like the first thing that comes to my head is just the athleticism, like being out there on the basketball court and being able to run around and be an athlete and understand like how to move through space. That was something that kind of separated me on the baseball field, is that, a lot of guys, could put the ball in play, could go chase a ball down, but, really being fast and athletic out there on the baseball field is kind of what set me apart and allowed me to continue to play beyond high school and college. So yeah, I attribute that to the things that I did on a basketball court. And certainly when it was time to switch over from basketball to baseball, like I always felt like I was in great shape and ready to go be an athlete on a baseball field.
Jett, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in multi-sport athletes. As you said, the game has changed a bit in the modern era of high school and collegiate sports. But for me, basketball set the tone for my baseball career, so to speak. Yeah. But like just having, Bret drive in the element of work ethic and having to put in the work to get good. For me, I was athletic. I wasn't a star player, but I had to work at it, to get good and be successful and earn my starting spot. And once I started to see results of putting in hours and hundreds of shots up in the gym, I was like, okay, I got this now. I'm at where I want to be. So that drive and that work ethic was instilled from Tovani, and that really led to me being able to continue on after high school and play baseball, which was my goal. Play college baseball. So, yeah.
Very cool. Hey, Duff, go ask your question.
Sorry, I was on mute, Dave. Which question would you like me to ask?
I want you to ask the home run question.
Okay. Well, yeah. Has that ever come up around the dinner table, Will, about career home runs between you and your dad? I looked it up. I think Max had 18 total, and you were north of 80.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Way to go, Duffy.
Right. He also got more service time than me. I mean, we don't like recount our stats or anything. I think probably like, a long time ago when, your in the driveway competing, maybe around the basketball court and playing one-on-one, and you beat your dad for the first time. That those are the times that we remember. But he had a great career, was able to play for a long time and longer than I was. So I give him all the credit, and we're not going back and counting homers now.
Such a good diplomatic answer.
It's kind of the answer I expected from an associate head coach in Major League Baseball. But talk a little bit about playing basketball with your dad. It sounds like you did play. I presume he was a pretty good basketball player, definitely a great athlete, right?
Yeah, he was just a guy that liked being in great shape and playing. And I know during his playing career, he would come back to Marin and play at the Y. And so then when it was my brother and I in the front yard, playing, he was out there with us, and just having fun. So there was a couple times we got him out there to open gym and stuff, and out at the Y, running up and down. But talk about a great multi-sport athlete. I mean, that dude was a freak. I mean, he was a freak running back, freak linebacker, and obviously a great baseball player. So he got a little basketball game in there too, although he didn't get the height. So but no, he's a great athlete. And another reason why I was pushed athletically, it just he set such a high standard for my brother and I.
I failed to, shame on me, but I failed to mention in the intro. Yeah, Will's brother Winston was it Boise State? Will, he played Boise, a football player at Boise State, I think, and then in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So you got the Venable family, decent athletes. You've got a couple of major league pro leagues represented. Hey, I want to talk about recruiting. Will, how did you end up at Princeton, and what other schools were you looking at?
Yeah, I was pretty far down the road with Santa Clara, and really liked their basketball coach, really liked what they had going on. They had a new gym they were building. They were going to let me play both sports, and took a visit there. Really, really liked it. And, kind of late in the recruiting game, Princeton called. I think I played in a tournament where one of their assistant coaches knew the coach I played against, and that coach called the assistant coach over at Princeton and said, "Hey, come check this kid out." And that's really where it started, and Coach Thompson came out, saw me play once, and then they offered me a trip to come out and check them out on a little recruiting visit. So yeah, I was kind of like, had my mindset on Santa Clara. And then, later in the process, Princeton came and took that visit. And then I remember coming home and my mom just saying, "Hey, that degree, like you should really consider this. And it's a long ways away from home, but you don't get those opportunities often to go to an Ivy League school." So yeah, mom sold me on it. And I also was really into the idea of going to the tournament, which they had done in the couple of years that we were in high school. So yeah, really exciting. And yeah, lucky to have played in that tournament or wherever it was that coach saw me.
Awesome. So Jett, you opted to go college in Marin, which seemed to be a great path for you. So discuss your thought process there and how you landed there.
Well, it's my only option. I just walked out the comm, so I'm gonna go play baseball. I wasn't recruited. I had a good baseball campaign at San Rafael, but nothing that's going to draw a bunch of D1 or even good D2 scouts to come out and see me. But like I said earlier in the recording here, I wanted to play college baseball. That was my ultimate goal, and College Marin was a good fit for me. But even when I went out there, it was definitely a significant step up. There's a lot of good baseball players out there, a lot of people, a lot of kids trying to make it. And we all had something in common. We all, weren't necessarily highly recruited. We're all chasing the dream. And I had to earn it at College of Marin. Behringer was a tough coach. And he built a heck of a program there over the years. I had him as his first full-time year as a head coach there. So, he had high expectations from the start. But, I put in hours in the cage. Probably too many. Probably overdid it, to be honest, looking back. But spent my time there and grew as a individual and a baseball player. And, ultimately, Steve did a great job finding me some opportunities in Iowa.
Great.
He got me looks at 3 schools in Iowa, went out and saw them all, went on a tour out there, and they all made me offers, which was super satisfying. It worked for me. I wish I could have gone higher up to, the goal is always D1, But ultimately, I went with Mount Mercy, who was the winningest program in the state at the time. And that's why I went with them and went out there and had a heck of a time playing. We played NAIA can play 75 games in the season. They've actually since cut it back, but
Okay.
a lot of fun. Different part of the world, and just, let it all out in the field, playing baseball out there.
Beautiful. So I want to jump to Will. I want to come back to you, and I want to nerd out on basketball. So get ready. Put your basketball nerd hat on, Will. You played for Princeton, man. How many coaches try to run the Princeton offense? I think every single one of them is the answer. So John Thompson III, son of the legend John Thompson at Georgetown, and JT3 was incredible player, played at Princeton himself, right? And great coach. So first of all, for our listeners who don't understand the Princeton offense or don't know what it is, explain the Princeton offense and then discuss being a part of it.
Yeah, it's probably impossible to really explain in this setting, but if you could just imagine, 20 different plays that all can connect somehow in some way that involve a lot of, like, the most basic thing that we did was like dribble drive, right? Where I'm dribbling straight at your defender. You get to make a decision whether to go back door or come step back and hand the ball off. And then we continue into something else. And that's, way more simple than it was, but it was those types of actions, where we're dribbling at each other's defenders, we're cutting back door, we're snapping it across and getting into something else. And so there's a ton of movement. And really it was four guys around a center. So if you say a guard or a forward, but you're really just not the center. So yeah, it was just a ton of action, a ton of movement, and sharing the ball. And ultimately, like, the goal was to either get a wide open layup or a wide open three. And so you'd have to go through a couple sets to get there. So it was very, very complicated. But once you got it and once you understood, hey, like, I want to start, play A to eventually get to a shot in play D, like, you could manipulate it, and you could really use the offense to your advantage. And when we had enough guys that really understood it, like, it was a lot of fun. But just getting there was challenging. So anyway, hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an offense.
So,
but and it's changed, right? Like, every coach that's been there has their own version of it.
No, you
ours was more traditional.
Sure.
Princeton offense that Kirill ran. Where now, like, I watch a Princeton game and, like, they're not doing anything that we did at all.
So Will mentioned Pete Carrill. And by the way, Will, that was a fantastic explanation. So, but Pete Carrill was there for many years, and he's a total legend. And you mentioned he had moved on to the pros, I think, by the time you were at Princeton. But he has one of my favorite quotes. Someone asked him after a game, like, how do you guys win so much? You look at Princeton's teams; they're not as athletic typically as some of and they're beating teams that are much bigger, faster, stronger. And he said, "We make shots," was his answer. So pretty simple answer. I'm curious, did you guys do a lot of skill work and shooting in practices, or was that more focused on the off season, and in practice you guys are running your motion sets and all that stuff? I know this was a long time ago, but just curious.
No. Very much driven by fundamentals. I mean, we would start practice with, like a star passing drill, just doing chest passes where, I mean, if we're not doing it the right way, like, we're running, like, we're, like, very detailed and intentional. And, like, that's what we started with every day. I mean, we spent a really good amount of time on just fundamental stuff, whether it was passing, dribbling, shooting, and then, like, obviously spending a lot of time, on our offense and different types of defenses too. But yeah, I would say the bulk of what we did was just very, like, fine fundamental work.
So compare and contrast a John Thompson III practice with a Bret Tovani practice. Like, so coming into Princeton, did you feel like, all right, this is fine because you've already endured the Tovani practices, or was it a big change for you?
No, not a big change at all. I mean, I felt like I was really well prepared. Bret never yelled at me, but Coach Thompson did. So that was a new thing for me. But then you realize, like, if, at college, if your coach isn't yelling at you, he probably doesn't care about you. And I, I
Exactly.
learned how to deal with it pretty quickly. And it was all good. He was just trying to get the most out of me. But they were very similar, a lot of energy. They commanded a ton of respect. They set really high expectations, really clear expectations, and held guys accountable to them. And then just going back to just kind of like the focus on fundamentals, like that was what we did in high school, and that's what we did in college too. So I felt like I was really well prepared for that transition, and credit Bret for that, because they were the practices were the same. They were the same.
Yeah. Gotcha. Duff, you have anything for Will on Princeton, or we'll move on?
Tell me a question about how your game might have evolved. Like, in high school, how did you score baskets, and was it similar or different at Princeton? And how much did your own sort of skill set evolve playing in a very structured offense at Princeton? And do you feel like in a different type of offense, you might have evolved in a different way?
Yeah, that was a big adjustment for me. Early on in high school, I realized like that I had a knack for getting by a defender with the ball in my hand, which was just not something that we did at Princeton. It was cutting to an open lane and getting a layup, or having to shoot the ball from the outside, which is just not something that I did a lot in high school. I was dishing it off to Jett so he could shoot. I was just getting layups. Like that was my jam, like getting to the bucket. And so that's just not something we did at Princeton. And so I had to figure out how to shoot a little bit, which I never really did. And then how to use the Princeton offense to my advantage and find plays where I could, get to the basket without the ball, which was a challenge also. So yeah, my game definitely had to evolve and adjust as I made that transition to college.
Very cool. All right. It's a question for both of you. Jett, your favorite drill that you did with Tovani?
At the time, this definitely wasn't my favorite drill because it was a real butt kicker. But looking back on it, the knockdown drill was a drill that instilled an incredible amount of toughness in our team.
Explain that.
So you'd have Mike Ravelli at the top of the key, and you would have to deny the wing guard who can go from the low block to the wing spot.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get 3 knockdowns with the back of your hand. So you're in denial position. And Mike would throw BBs. Firing the ball. And it was nearly impossible to get a knockdown, especially depending on who you're guarding. So if you're guarding a more athletic person than you or a quicker person than you, which is a few folks on the team, you really had to work for it. So you got to get 3 knockdowns, and you'd stay there for a long time. I remember going through that drill for a long time one day, and it really made me mad. I was dropping F-bombs, and Tovani let me do it. He let me swear my way out of it. But, you got to get 3 knockdowns, and after that, you got to lay out going back door, dive, knock down a ball. Then you got to go and get up from that diving spot. The offensive player runs to the opposite corner and runs into you. You got to take a charge. After you take a charge, then you got to play one-on-one with that same player at the top of the key and get a stop. And the drill isn't over until you get a stop. So you're exhausted by this point. That was a great drill. And then we'd also do one more where you got to defend 5 guys on the perimeter. So you throw the ball out, close out to the guy in the wing. You got to get a stop. They got 3 dribbles. Once you get the rebound, you throw the ball to the next spot. You got to get a stop. They get 3 dribbles. So that was two great defensive drills that instilled toughness. And then, anytime we played anything one-on-one was always super fun. So,
man, I'm tired listening to that.
Yeah. Knockdown drill was legendary for sure.
Yeah. Will, favorite drill, either from Thompson or Bret? Oop.
Yep.
We might have lost Will.
He doesn't believe in drills. He's not a drill guy, Dave.
So Jett, we'll try to get Will back, but
yeah, sure.
You're AD at Archie. So how do you feel about the state of high school athletics today?
I think they're in a really good place. I think looking back from when I played to how things are now, there's a lot of skilled athletes out there.
Yeah.
They have a lot of great resources to be so skilled. There's skills trainers, there's athletic trainers. We never had trainers. So these kids, if they're banged up,
Yeah.
They can go and get treatment. I was sitting on the sideline with a heating pad before a game when I had a dead leg or something. I never had anyone to work on it or anything like that.
Rub some dirt on it, Jett.
Yeah, exactly. But I think they're in a great place, great facilities. The MCAL is a heck of a league. All the schools are bought in to their athletics programs, and you can see that reflected in the great and awesome facilities that we have. But the resources that all the kids have these days is awesome. So I think it's in a really great place.
Awesome. Duffy.
I'm looking forward to the nutrition lecture tomorrow night. Correct? Yeah. So they're bringing in, speakers to talk to the kids about, how to maximize the nutrition, and they'll feed them pizza beforehand just to kind of emphasize.
Yeah.
Duffy, are they go ahead, Jett.
High calorie, energy dense food. They're going to need it. Well,
yeah.
It's what we can afford to give the kids. They're going to be hungry as heck coming from practice.
Yeah.
We're giving them pizza before nutrition talk.
I was going to say the nutrition lecture is going to recommend that they go to the hub.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, Will, you're back. What's your favorite drill from either Princeton or SR?
Yeah, well, the knockdown drill, great call, Jett. You know what? As simple as it might be, and Jett mentioned it earlier, just like running 9s or 17s from sideline to sideline, like I just thought that was always a great, like, kind of like gut check time for yourself, but also like I, as a leader of the group, like getting, the last guy on the team to cross the finish line in time. And you know what I mean? I just thought we all like learned so much and grew going through those drills together. Those are like some of the times that I remember the most, just being out and grinding and making sure that, number one, that I'm getting across the line in time, but like, just what it meant for our whole group to push each other to finish it. Yeah, just great drill for me.
We love it. Do Syracuse leading up to that, to the 9. So we have to make a certain amount of buckets with the Syracuse drill in a certain amount of time. And every bucket we were short was a 9 or a 17. But you had to make the 9 in 30 seconds. There was no wiggle room. Like same thing with 17 in a minute. There was no
Hey, Jett, what's Syracuse?
See if I can explain it. Will, you remember Syracuse, right?
Yeah, the full court drill.
Yeah, full court drill. There's a guy at each elbow on each end of the court. You start out of bounds. Throw the ball to the guy in the elbow on your side. Get it back. Make a full court pass to the next elbow. He gives it back for a layup, and then the next guy gets it out of the hoop. Don't let the ball touch the ground. And you go back and do the same thing.
Okay. Yep. I know that.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. That's a good one. So you got a time constraint. You got to make a certain number, and if you don't, then you're lining up on the sideline and you're running a 17.
Super fun drill. Super fun.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So I'm mindful of time here, but there are a few things I want to touch on. I'm interested in the kind of the differences in coaching and motivation with baseball and basketball. And, you both played both sports at a high level. I mean, Will, you're at the highest level in baseball. You're a coach now. So discuss the different coaching style in basketball versus baseball. I mean, my perspective as a layman is like basketball, it's indoors, it's tight, it's loud, it's chaotic. The coach is right on you. In baseball, you're on this beautiful field. There's more space. So it just feels like it's less immediately on you, right? So how do you deal with that? Kind of discuss the coaching style differences in baseball and basketball.
I'm curious Jett's perspective too on his experience after high school, because I was very much a part of a program at Princeton where it was a kind of a pro style, and Scott Bradley, our coach there, who's still a coach there now, had played in the big leagues for a long time and ran the program very much like a professional team and coached like we would with the pro guys, which is just like similar in that we're setting high expectations and, very clear with what those are and holding guys accountable. But, your approach to holding guys accountable on a baseball field might be, a private conversation where you're not yelling and it's not intense. It's not heat of the moment. Like, what are you doing? Where those kind of moments of accountability on a basketball court are very public, very loud,
right,
and sometimes aggressive. And, you're getting kicked out of the gym. We're not kicking kids off the baseball field because someone didn't run hard, but we are having a tough conversation about it. So I think just communication styles are a lot different on the sports, at least in my experience. And, Jett, I don't know if you had a different experience when you played in college, but that was my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I had two different college baseball coaches. Steve was a very strategic and manufacture runs kind of coach, and got pretty scientific with things. I had him earlier on in his career, so I can only imagine how much further he'd come with all that stuff. But very detailed practices. But he let you know if you weren't living up to his expectations, for sure. Like he let you know about it, and he had extremely high expectations for everybody and ran a tight ship. My guy in Iowa, Justin Schulte, much more loose, let you swing at any count. He gave you the green light at 3-0, let you steal base whenever you wanted to. You didn't even have to get a sign. I love that. He just let you play free. But he called me every name under the sun a few times, and but like Will said earlier, it was a great point you made. If he wasn't yelling at you, he didn't care about you. So, he was awesome.
And
call me off guard. Some of the things he called me, but I responded.
It's Iowa, man. Think different in Iowa.
Dream.
I want to, Duff, I know you have a question. I just want to point out to the younger kids out there listening to this, if a coach is getting on you, that means the coach cares, right? If you're making a mistake and the coach doesn't even say anything, that's not as optimal, I think. And I played for coaches who got on me, and I would be bummed and felt like he was targeting me or whatever. But it's like, you know what? If he wasn't getting on me, then he doesn't care, right? So anyway, Duff, go ahead.
And Dave, that's exactly why occasionally in these interviews I tell you to focus, because I care about you and I want you to move on.
That's
and
right.
we probably should move on to crunch time, Dave. But I do want to ask Will this question about Bruce Bochy, and that is, if he were coaching a high school basketball team, what would that look like? What would his approach be?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
Probably similar to Bret. Boch is very, very mellow guy, you know what I mean? Like, and he's an elite communicator. He's a very caring, mellow guy, but in game, it's intense. He is locked in. He's obviously, nothing gets by him, but there's some, like his passion for doing things the right way and playing the game right, like comes out more during games than it does outside the game, which I've been around managers where it's the total opposite, So yeah, I could see him in a Tovani type role where it's intense. There's some language and intensity and holding guys accountable for sure.
Would he do that, you think, in front of the team, or would he do it more like you were saying, baseball style, like pulling a guy aside? Because he does, like, I don't know him at all, but it just seems like he's an amazing communicator, as you say, and that's part of the reason he's so successful.
Yeah, I think like to your point, I mean, he can figure out whatever the group needs, whatever that player needs. Like he can be whatever the moment needs to get to the right ending. He's just so adaptable and so bright and just so in tune with everything. Yeah, I mean, he could, whatever that player needed, I'm sure that he's going to get that kid that, no matter what the sport, no matter what the situation. He's just one of those elite leaders that gets the best out of the people around him.
Yeah, cool.
Good question, Duffy. Okay, Will, I know you gotta run. Let's get to crunch time. So this is the end of the interview where we ask you a few rapid fire questions that I end up droning on and on about. So, and then Duffy will get mad at me. Here we go. Jett, toughest basketball player you ever played against in Marin?
Brian DeFares, point guard at TAM. It's like Jason Kidd out there. Guy was unreal.
Good answer. Heard of him. Will, same question.
Wow. Great answer, by the way, Jett. That DeFares was one of them. I'm throwing out the name Travis LeBoy, who wasn't on the basketball court a lot.
Yeah.
But was like talk about like the dude that definitely is a better multi-sport athlete than me.
Football player, yeah. Right?
But he would get on a basketball court, and that was the first time in Marin that I was like, man, like athletically, like I'm not even close to this dude. Yeah. I can remember a couple of times going up for a layup and him coming out of nowhere and, taking my stuff, like 5 rows deep. So that for me, he like sticks out as just like one for me, like probably the greatest multi-sport athlete that I can think of out of Marin, but also like the toughest athlete to play against on the basketball court.
Where did he go to high school, Will?
He was Marin Catholic.
MC. Okay. Yeah. All right. How about, so this one probably more for Will, because you played college ball. Toughest basketball player you ever played against?
You know, in the tournament my junior year, we played against Texas and Royale Ivy.
Oh,
I
yeah?
don't know what kind of NBA career he had. Not a great one, but I know he made it to the NBA. But yeah, in the second half, he just dominated me to a level that I've never been dominated before, where he was just jumping higher than me, doing everything better than me. And yeah, that was kind of like the toughest matchup that I can remember having in college.
Will,
Yeah,
can I throw in one? How about JJ Redick, Will? Is he a baller? You played against him, right?
He was good, but like great shooter, but athletically not like, yeah. He was a great player though.
Yeah.
Really good podcaster, by the way.
Great
More
great post-playing career for sure.
Duffy, he has more downloads than we do. I hate to admit it. Will, for how tall are you, Will?
6'2", 6'3". I say 6'3" with my shoes on, so
Okay,
I always
cool.
wanted to be 6'3". I'm saying I got there.
All right. Jett, favorite gym in Marin?
Doghouse, San Rafael. The orange hue lights of San Rafael High main gym, but second close runner up is Gym 2 by, and then honorable mention to MC.
Okay, Will, same question.
I'm going MC. There was just something like going in there and like want to beat those guys so bad. And it was a nice gym too. But yeah, that was like, yeah, I want to come in here and have a good game and like crush these dudes.
Yeah. Bouncy floor, soft rims.
Yeah.
Soft rims. We get that. We've heard that. It's a common answer. I'd say we're like 25 episodes in. I think the most common answer is MC, with a close second is Drake. Okay. Favorite gym you played in anywhere in the world?
The Palestra was amazing. That was probably like one of the best spots. Cameron Indoor was amazing too. Like, I met my wife there, so I probably have to say that's number one.
Smart answer.
I didn't, but that was also like equally like a cool atmosphere. So those two get my vote for sure.
Beautiful. Jett, game-winning three or game-winning base hit?
Base hit with a wooden bat for sure. Opposite field. Yeah.
Novato Knicks style. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet. Will, same question.
Yeah, I'm going base hit for sure.
Okay. All right. Dream team. You guys we're playing pickup in Gym 2. You can roll out there with four people. Will, who's on your squad?
Well, I mean, I hard for me to just pick 4 guys, like I grew up playing with Gene Barnes, Stevie Johnson, Joe Lazzaretti, Jimmy Hart, Chad Daggett, Dustin Brown. I mean, like, these are the guys like since second grade we've been playing together and playing pickup together, like, and even after high school, and we're throwing Jett in there too, like, because no one else in that group can shoot like Jetters can. So we throw Jett in there too. But yeah, like, it's just the guys, man. Those are my guys, my basketball guys from when we were just little guys out there in like second and third grade. So they're all on my list.
Awesome. Jett, same question.
All right, I thought this one through. This is my favorite question you guys have asked. I got Bravelli at the 1. I've got Will at the 3. I got Lee Cretion at the 4.
Ooh.
And tough call on the 5, but I went with D Brown at the 5 because he's just a bucket getter and a rebound getter. But off the bench, I've got Natu and Tommy Christensen. I got a few more guys. I'm
whoa.
I've got my non-San Rafael guys. Got Bobby Donlin, Stevie Johnson, because Stevie came after I graduated. Chris Jackson from Redwood, and Bucky Chavez.
Yeah. Thank goodness we have a Bucky reference.
Show and go, rocking up in sweats, just balling out in adult league. San Rafael adult league, Bucky, just balling out. Yeah,
I played with him there. It was he's amazing.
Yeah,
Duffy, what other crunch time questions do you have for our esteemed guests? Well, Will mentioned the Marin YMCA pickup ball. So I want Will's best ever Marin Y player that he's played against at the Marin Y, because that was my favorite game for a long time.
Oh, man. I don't know, but I will say this, and someone who I've been in contact with recently is Bobby Aldridge, who I know is a big Y guy and a great player. and still doing great things in the fitness world. So I'll give Bobby Aldridge a vote on.
I see Chet all the time at the gym. He's such a good guy. The Aldridges are great people. Well, we could talk to you guys forever. This was so fun. Thank you so much for your time. I'm glad that we're giving San Rafael some love on the pod. We've had some. You're not our first San Rafael guest. We had Deneen and a few others. Michelle Bravelli was a esteemed guest as well. But Jett, thank you for all that you do for Marin Sports. You're a fantastic AD for a great institution at Archie Williams. Thank you for keeping Duffy in line. And Will, it's an honor to chat with you. Thanks so much for taking the time. Good luck with spring training. Enjoy getting fitted for that World Series ring, and we'll be rooting for you.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is a lot of fun. And yeah, man, you talking about all this stuff, you just forget like how special San Rafael and Marin Sports is. And yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on and thinking of me, and always great to see Jett. And yeah, just thank you so much.
Hey, Dave. Great stuff. Thank you, Jett and Will. Let's get your hot take on it. Dave, actually not so hot because we're recording this a week or so afterwards, but your delayed, somewhat lukewarm take on it.
My lukewarm day leftovers take. I thought really fun to talk to these guys. A couple things that I pointed out or jumped out to me. Just the discussion of Tovani I thought was really fun. And actually, Duff, you and I are going to sit down with Coach Tovani here in the next couple of weeks, which will be great because he coached for 50 plus years. But just their discussion of how he built culture at San Rafael High, and right down to, after school pickup games in gym 2, and what a big deal that was for those guys. We've spent so much time on this podcast talking about the importance of playing pickup, and for our generation, how that really informed our love of basketball. And I'm not surprised that at San Rafael High, watching those teams play those years, that those guys were playing pickup a lot. And Bret had a big part of that. And Dave Deneen talked about, Tovani ball. Bret was playing with him. But just I think it was Jett talking about how, the varsity team always got first game, right? The best players were in the first game.
Yep. And
he said, you walk in and they've got their varsity team shirts and their team mouth guards. And as an underclassman, that's what you aspire to, right? You want to get in that first game. You want to have the team mouth guard and the team shirt. And what a cool tradition. And then Will talked about,
whatever happened to the mouth guard, not let alone the team mouth guard. You don't see kids wearing mouth guards really at all.
So Steph, obviously, it's a massive part of his apparel, right? Every play, it's out of his mouth and back in. You would expect to see more people with the mouth guard. It's true. You wear one when you play.
I do, and you know why, Dave? Because I've had a dental implant. And you know what? Dental implants are not fully covered by insurance. In fact, they're like barely covered by insurance. And you know how I got the dental implant?
Playing pickup.
Playing pickup, yeah. Actually, playing pickup was the first crack, and the second crack was in a San Rafael League game. And 2 cracks, and then you're on to an implant. Anyway, I have tried to get my kids to wear mouth guards. I've tried to get Holden to wear a mouth guard. I don't know what it is. I know it's uncomfortable, but once you adapt to it, it just provides so much protection. I actually think it provides some protection against concussion too, because you have something to absorb a blow if it's a blow to the face or the jaw. Anyway, I know we're getting off topic here, but since you mentioned it, Dave, kids should be wearing mouth guards. They really should.
Good public service announcement. I also like it because remember, I think that the mouth guard was the single reason that Jordan Poole was traded, because Steph threw his mouth guard. When Jordan Poole did not pass Steph the ball, he was open.
Mouth guard, yeah.
And that changed the whole course of NBA history. Okay.
No, it wasn't Draymond that hit Jordan. It was the mouth guard.
It was the mouth guard. It was a flying mouth guard. So what Will talked about is kind of the same idea of building culture and the impact that Tovani had, but he talked about the JYD, the junkyard dog mentality, which is very fitting descriptor of how San Rafael played back in those days. Just tough, tenacious. They're going to outwork you. They're never going to give up. They're going to be in your craw. They're picking you up full court. And Will talked about building an identity and that everybody was bought in. And he kept saying, we knew who we were. And he's right. those teams were really cohesive units, very tough to beat because they were all bought in and all on the same page, and that was Tovani.
They'd all gone through the knockdown drills. Like, I hadn't heard that before. I mean, heard of, some gauntlet. We do like, a hustle gauntlet drill every once in a while, but this one sounds like totally off the charts tough in terms of if you got a guy like Mike Ravelli, making a pass to the wing and you have to try and knock that down 3 times. And then you're trying to knock down a backdoor pass. And then you're taking a charge and then you're going 1-on-1 and like you have to keep going until you get a stop. And you're exhausted because of what you just did, in the early parts of the drill. So yeah, that will, I'm sure some people quit. Some of the guys, quit from that drill alone. I can guarantee that.
So hard and so much worse than sprints. I mean, sprints suck. Obviously, we all hate sprints. We've all done them. We all have to do them. Being in condition is a very important part of basketball. But those defensive drills, when you're just dead, your legs feel like jello, and you've got to suck it up and get this stop. In that to get out of the drill. And man, what a great preparation for when you're in a game and it's the fourth quarter and it's a playoff game and it's NCS and you're exhausted. That you can tap into that, something that you have inside you that helped you get through that drill. That's going to help you get that stop in that fourth quarter of that game.
Yep. So true. All right, Dave. JJ Redick. He has a podcast. We have a podcast. He came up in this podcast. He hasn't invited us on yet, but maybe he will. I want to defend him, at least based on what I've read about him and what I saw in his career. I think he is an exceptional athlete with a very good vertical leap. But one thing that I believe to be true, because I read it in a book by an author who's well respected, and I think probably had good editors, is that Redick is one of the few players in the NBA in recent memory to have a wingspan that was not longer by ratio than his height. So, the prototypical NBA player, Dave, is not only tall, but they have long arms. And so when you hear 7-foot wingspan, that's as if the guy is 6'7", but they have the wingspan of a 7-footer. And that is much more likely to be the case in the NBA than anywhere else in existence, because that just allows you to get those arms in the lane and get the rebounds and, dribble lower to the ground, all this, stuff that adapts well to basketball. So at a certain time, Dave, in the NBA, this is from a book written by David Epstein called The Sports Gene. Great book. The only 2 players in the league for a season who did not have a wingspan that was average or above average compared to their height were JJ Redick and Glenn Davis, Big Baby from LSU. And we do remember him, Dave, with these arms like this.
He was a big dude. He was strong. Well, you're right. JJ, really good athlete, could leap, obviously phenomenal shooter, kind of made his living in the NBA being a 3-point shooter. But look, the bottom line is we asked Will, who were the toughest guys you had to guard. He mentioned Jaden Ivey. Jett threw out JJ Redick, and Will said, he was fine. So I guess Will didn't have any problems with JJ.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, JJ, when he listens to our podcasts, that he knows that we are kind of looking out for him, putting in a good word here and there, even if Will Venable did shut him down.
JJ, let's do a joint pod. We'll give you all of our 39 listeners. Just kidding. We have way more than 39.
And a nice big mug of iced coffee.
Maybe a Hub gift certificate. Yes. Anything else stuff on Will and Jett that you wanted to point out?
I'm going to say no. I think we'd like to have him back on at some point, so we can just leave it open.
It was a great discussion about, I liked the multi-sport aspect of that discussion, right? 2 guys who really thrived playing 2 sports and benefited by being multi-sport athletes. Carrie husbands and her husband Julian talked about they're big proponents of being multi-sport athletes. So I think Jett and Will are great examples of success stories in that front. So
yeah, and
really fun to talk to
Kevin and Jake Vasquez too. Yeah, it's a
totally.
theme over and over again. But Dave, you and I are going to continue to talk about basketball. We're not going to start a baseball podcast. We're not going to go to We're not going to start talking cornhole, although we might play cornhole and talk basketball. We're going to stay true to our essence, basketball.
Pickleball, Duff? Should we start a pickleball podcast? The Pickle Pod?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay.
But there would be some good alliteration possibilities, pickle pod possibilities.
Well, I'll let you, you're our marketing guy. I'll let you figure that out. Well, thanks to Jett and Will. Really enjoyed it. We have more great interviews coming up. So keep listening. And this is fun. Love doing this with you, Duff.
Yeah, I agree. Love it so much, Dave. And I love this sign off, which is, this has been the Run TMC podcast. That is the Marin County podcast, a podcast about basketball in Marin County. And thank you to Luke Esterkin, Stroke 9. Let's take it away.
Hit it, Luke.
Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says, "Hey dude, you too must be from Marin."